At the beginning of 2024, you can expect a camping tent to cost anywhere from about $50 to $300, but the full range is much wider than that. Price depends on the size, on the materials used, on the brand, and many other factors. That's what we're going to dive into.
Gear up and get outside.
If you're just starting out on your camping journey, then you may be wondering how much you should reasonably spend on a tent. A tent is a necessary, essential piece of camping gear that you must have. But how much should you spend on it? Or maybe you've just realized that you love camping now and it's time to upgrade from your starter gear to something more long-term. There are a lot of options for camping tents on the market, so it can be confusing as to what you really need versus what you might want or what you really don't care about. And then you got to figure price into all of that. And tents are offered at a wide range of prices. That's why I have my notes here, because I did a lot of research for this. We looked at stores like REI, Backcountry, Amazon, Cabela's, Sportsman's Warehouse, and more, just to see what is a realistic amount of money that you should expect to spend on a tent. And what are they going for these days? If you just want a quick answer, here's what you can expect. For a 2-person backpacking tent, a good tent will cost you between $50 and $150. That's something basic, entry level. A better tent will cost between $150 and $400. That's kind of the mainstream, solid, quality backpacking tents. And the best 2-man backpacking tents cost between $400 and $700, but it can even go up higher than that. Now, if you're just looking to get into car camping, an entry-level, inexpensive car camping tent that's a 2-man tent will cost between $40 and $80. A better tent will cost $80 to $140, and the best 2-man car camping tents that are very good quality are going to be between $140 and $250. Of course, you can spend more. Now, as you've seen on some of my other videos, I really like canvas tents. So here's what you can expect for a small 2-man-ish size canvas tent. An inexpensive one might cost you $100 to $200. That'd be a good tent that you might find on Amazon or something. A better canvas tent will cost $200 to $300, and the best 2-man canvas tents cost between $300 and $500. Now, if you're looking at going car camping with your family and you want a canvas tent for 8 people, you're going to be looking at spending $400 to $500 just for a basic good one that you get off of Amazon from a brand that no one recognizes. You can get a little bit better tent from a reputable brand between $500 and $600, and the best 8-man canvas tents cost between $600 and $800, with some of my favorites going over $1,000. But you don't have to do a canvas tent for car camping. You can just do a standard nylon or polyester synthetic tent. So a typical 8-person car camping tent might cost you $180 to $200. A better one will cost you $200 to $250, and the best car camping tents for 8 people are going to cost $250 to $400. And again, the very, very best from name brands are going to cost several $100s. Now, these prices come from our own research. We just kind of took a poll looking at many different retailers, many different manufacturers, and seeing what tents cost. So this is a summary of what we found out. And when it comes to tent prices, remember that a higher price doesn't always mean higher quality. Whenever possible, I recommend checking out a tent in person at a retailer if you can. You're probably not going to be able to set it up, but you can probably talk to someone that knows a whole lot about it. And if you can't, watch some reviews, including some of my own, to hopefully get you a better perspective on what you're buying. I invite you to stick around to the end of the video, because I'm going to give you even more detailed price breakdowns from specific retailers. So what are the factors that make a tent more expensive? First of all, size. Larger family-sized tents are going to cost a little bit more. There's simply more material involved and extra considerations in the design. Now, if there's a rainfly included or a footprint, ground sheet included, extra features like built-in lighting, lightweight materials, especially for backpacking tents, cost more. Also, super durable canvas tents that breathe well, made of cotton, those cost more as well. 3-season or 4-season tents that are built for more inclement weather are going to cost a little bit more than a very basic summertime tent. And of course, if you're buying a tent from a recognizable brand name, you're probably going to pay a little extra. Less expensive tents, on the other hand, are generally cheaper because they're either smaller, they're made of lower quality materials like polyester or other plastic materials. They often come from smaller brands with no name recognition, especially brands you might find on Amazon or Temu or Alibaba. And there's a good chance they're 1-season or fair weather only tents, not really made to withstand rain, wind, snow, or any kind of bad weather. They generally won't have a rain fly, and you're lucky if they have any legitimate weatherproofing for a cheap tent. The other thing is they're going to be bulkier when you pack them up, and they're going to be heavier just because of the materials they're made of. Often cheaper tents are also going to have an older design. Think of that dome tent that just has 4 corners and is square isn't the best, most efficient for any kind of weather, but it's very cheap. When it comes to size, tents range from being big enough for 1 person all the way up to 10 person. This one behind me is a 2-person tent, but that's kind of tight. When it comes to seasonality, 3-season tents are the most common type, but not all 3-season tents are equal. Some are actually going to work for the shoulder seasons in the spring and fall, and some are really going to be inadequate, especially if it's extra cheap. And on the other hand, you're going to pay more for a 4-season tent that you can genuinely use in the winter. Take that word winter or 4-season with a grain of salt, because winter in the west, where I'm at, is different than winter in the south. You can even go beyond that and purchase a 5-season tent or a mountaineering tent, which is really designed for those guys climbing big mountains. Most of us never need that. Double wall tents are more weatherproof and comfortable, and that moisture that will condense inside the tent will be on the outer wall instead of the inner wall. So when you roll in the middle of the night and your sleeping bag is up against the wall, you're less likely to get wet in a double wall tent than you are in a single wall. Double wall tents are generally more expensive, but they do hold up better in the rain, wind, and snow. Overall, this makes them a more versatile option. This tent here is an inexpensive single wall tent, and it certainly can be used in all seasons as well, but you just have some additional risks and things you got to take into account, like, am I going to get wet inside? Perhaps one of the biggest factors in a tent's price is the material it's made of. I did a whole other video on this, and you're welcome to go watch that, where I compare the benefits, the pros and cons of nylon versus polyester versus canvas as tent materials. Those are the main materials used. There's also another one called Dyneema used in some high-end backpacking tents. Tents on the lower end of the price range will generally be made of polyester. Nylon tents are in the mid-price range to the high-end range, and canvas tents are also mid to high-end. While canvas tents are more expensive, they're also much more durable, and they can last a lifetime. Canvas tents are also very well suited to glamping situations or long-term living in the woods, or just long-term campouts such as a hunting camp. And there are various sizes and designs, from cabin tents to bell tents. Whereas a backpacking tent is often made of nylon. Nylon is generally the lightest weight and most durable material, and it can cost a little bit more than a polyester tent. It also packs down smaller, and that's a big deal when you're backpacking. So you can easily spend $400 on a quality backpacking tent made of nylon. However, nylon does stretch a bit, so sometimes people prefer polyester if they know they're going to be in rain or snow, because polyester doesn't stretch and sag like nylon can. Now, obviously in the US, a lot of us pay a lot of money for brand name gear, especially when it comes to outdoor gear. Some reputable brands that make tents that cost quite a bit more are companies like Big Agnes, Nemo, REI, Mountain Hardware, Kelty, Marmot, Black Diamond, and MSR, to name a few. These brands make both high-quality car camping and backpacking tents. However, there are also a lot of recognizable brands at affordable price points, such as Coleman. But to be very honest, brand is one of the last things I consider when I'm buying a tent. You're going to want to look more at the construction type, the materials, the weight, the bulk, and frankly, online reviews before you choose a camping tent. Don't just buy something based off of brand name alone, because even the best brands make a lot of gear that people don't like. An average price point for a quality backpacking tent is $300 to $400. Now that's a lot of money, and I agree, you should be able to find quality gear for less. You can buy decent backpacking tents for around $200, especially when things go on sale. But on the other hand, ultralight tents can cost $500 to $700 easily. You'll usually find heavier tents made of bulkier material at the lower end of the price range. But in my opinion, a tent is one of those areas where you can shave off a lot of weight easily if you're willing to spend a little bit more money and get a quality tent made of very lightweight materials. It could mean the difference between a 6-pound tent and a 2-pound tent. That's 4 pounds you can knock off your backpacking base weight, which might represent 10 to 20% of the total weight of many backpackers' packs. You'll see a lot of tents advertised as ultralight tents. The main goal of that is to cut down on size and weight, and people pay big money to do that. Many ultralight backpacking tents are trekking pole tents, where they don't have any poles included in the system. You simply use 1 or 2 trekking poles that you're using anyway to pitch the tent. So do you need an ultralight backpacking tent? Well, if you haven't reached a point in your backpacking journey where weight is of major importance to you, then I probably wouldn't bother with it, especially if you only go a few times a year. And some avid backpackers still prefer a heavier tent just for the comfort it provides. All right, now let me give you some more specifics on what we found on prices. First of all, if you're looking just to get started and you just want an entry-level budget tent, frankly, Walmart isn't a bad place to go. Here's a chart of what you can expect to pay for a tent at Walmart. I should note that there aren't a lot of good backpacking options at Walmart, and even if there are, I would probably avoid those, since when backpacking you rely on your shelter a lot more than when car camping when you have a quick getaway. So here are some specific price ranges based on what's available online right now as of the time of filming. Excluding rooftop tents, at REI you can find a car camping tent from between $125 and $2,000. The median price for a car camping tent, so that price right in the middle, is $350. And they have a few clearance items for about 80 bucks. When you look specifically at backpacking tents at REI, the price ranges from $150 to $920, with a median price of $450. So that gives you a good indication of where the market's at. If half of the tents that REI sells, one of the most popular outdoor retailers in the country, are over $450, tents are expensive. Although when I looked for this, they did have one tent on clearance for $95 that is a backpacking tent. If you look at Sportsman's Warehouse, tents range in price from $50 to $1,600 with a median price of $250. They offer a lot of different brands than REI, and some of them obviously are cheaper if half the tents are less than 250 bucks. The story is quite similar if you shop at Cabela's or Bass Pro Shops, where tents range in price from $30 to $2,000 with a median price of $300. And just for kicks, I looked at Academy Sports as well. Academy isn't available where I live, except online, but they have tents ranging from $20 to $1,000 with a median price of $220. So it seems they have more cheaper options there, but they also have a smaller selection than some of these other retailers. When you look at tents on Amazon, it is really hard to narrow down your search to actual tents so you don't get stakes and canopies and weird stuff that are on sale there for $20,000. Doesn't make any sense to me. So it's hard to tell what the exact range is. Tents start at $20 on Amazon for a very inexpensive, cheap tent that's probably more for kids playing in the backyard than it is for real camping. But the price goes way up from there. And just for kicks, I looked on Temu, which has become a very popular app and marketplace since last year, where I bought this tent as well. And it also has tents that go down to $5 sometimes, but you can't tell if they're a toy tent or a camping tent, but they go up to about $750 on Temu. And that's even for a canvas tent I saw. If you're looking for ways to save money on a new tent, there are three main ways you can do that. The first is off-season sales. If you're watching this video when it comes out, it's winter, and this is a good time to buy a tent because you can buy a lot of last year's goods on clearance or at a good price. Big outdoor retailers like REI also have annual sales. Some of the best sales in the outdoor industry occur around Memorial Day in the spring and also around the 4th of July. So keep an eye out for those, but in general, outdoor gear can be cheaper in the off-season. The second best way to save money on a tent is to buy used. Used gear is often inexpensive and in great shape and has many years of life left. So shop on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist to see if you find someone just trying to get rid of their old stuff. Lastly, you can try to rent a tent. Some outdoor gear shops, especially a lot of local shops, or even some of the big retailers, may rent equipment that you can just try out. That allows you to try different models and see what you like, or just spend a little bit less money if you're not going to be going all the time. It also means you don't have to store that gear back at home. If you thought this video was helpful, do me a favor and hit the like button, and then go watch this video next. Now gear up and get outside.